Hello, everybody. Today we're going to talk about musical theater. So, musical stage theater is one of the most captivating and enduring art forms. It blends music, drama, and dance to tell compelling stories. From its early origins in ancient civilizations to the dazzling Broadway productions in Manhattan and London's West End, musical theater has evolved into a powerful medium of entertainment and artistic expression. In this presentation, we are going to explore the history of musical theater, tracing its development through the ages. Our interest in theater connects us intimately with the ancient Greeks and Romans. Nearly every Greek and Roman city of note had an open-air theater, and the seats arranged in tiers with a lovely view of the surrounding landscape. Here the Greeks sat and watched the plays, first of Sophocles, Euripides, Aristophanes, and Menander, and later playwrights. The Greek theater consisted essentially of an orchestra, the flat dancing floor of the chorus, and the theatron, the actual structure of the theater building. Since theaters in antiquity were frequently modified and rebuilt, the surviving remains offer us little clear evidence of the nature of the exact theatrical space that was available to the classical artists in the 6th and 5th centuries before Common Era. There's no physical evidence of a circular orchestra earlier than that of the greater theater of Epidaurus, dated to about 330 before Common Era. Most likely, the audience in the 5th century before Common Era Athens was seated right up next to the stage in a kind of rectilinear arrangement, such as it appears at the well-preserved theater at Thorikos in Attica. During this early period in Greek drama, the stage and probably most of the scene were made of wood. Vase paintings that depict Greek comedy from the late 5th and early 4th centuries before Common Era suggest that the stage stood about a meter high with a flight of steps into the center. The actors entered from either side and from a central door in the skene, which was there for them to change their costumes and store masks and so on. It also housed the ekaklima, a wheeled platform that had sets and scenes. A crane that was located kind of in the center or to the right of the center of the stage that was used to hoist up the gods and the heroes through the air into the stage. Greek dramatists surely made the most of extreme contrast between the gods up high and the actors on the stage, between the dark interior of the stage building and the bright daylight. We're going to fast forward now right into the Renaissance and early musical theater of that time. And also we're going to look at opera. While opera and musical theater are distinct genres today, their early histories were closely linked. Renaissance and early opera. In Italy, opera emerged as a fusion of drama and music and pioneered by composers such as Claudio Monteverde. Opera Sierra and opera buffa developed, influencing musical storytelling in the theater. In England, the Beggar's Opera by John Gay satirized Italian opera and introduced spoken dialogue in between songs. This format laid the groundwork for later musical comedies. French operetta and Singspiel, French and German developments in their own musical theatrical traditions were works like Jacques Offenbach's operettas and Mozart's The Magic Flute, which combined spoken dialogue and musical numbers. In Italy, opera emerged as a fusion of drama and music, and it was pioneered by such artists as Claudio Monteverde and others. In the spirit of the Renaissance, Roman plays were performed on festive occasions at the courts of Italian princes. Perhaps they proved a little heavy-going for some of the guests. It became the custom to have some more lavish musical entertainment, or what was known as the intermissio or intermizzi or intermediate pieces between the acts, with spectacular stage effects, beautiful costumes, and much singing and dancing. And so these were extremely dramatic, these intermezzi. So the revival of classical antiquity plays brought artists together to emulate and revive the dramatic arts of antiquity, laying the groundwork for opera. The rise of humanism, with its focus on individual expression and human creativity, was instrumental in opera's emergence. Humanist ideals encourage artists to explore new forms of expression that emphasized emotions and intellectual experiences. The Medici family in Florence was at the forefront of promoting the arts during the Renaissance. They were patrons of many early operatic works and commissioned performances that innovatively combined music, poetry, and drama. As society became more secular and moved away from the church, artists were able to explore themes beyond religious subjects, paving the way for secular narratives that would become a defining feature in opera. Before opera was completely established as a distinct genre, several experimental forms laid the groundwork. These early experiments were crucial to shape opera's future. So, as I said earlier, the interludes, or the intermediate, the spaces in between a theatrical performance, people would get somewhat bored. And so these musical interludes that were performed between the acts of the play, they called them intermedi or intermezzo or intermezzi. They were essential in opera's evolution. They combined music, dance, and visual effects to create dramatic narratives. The intermezzo, performed at the de Medici court during Ferdinando de Medici's wedding to Christine of Lorraine in 1589, were particularly notable for their elaborate production and their artistic innovations. Favola in musica, the genre which combined poetry, music, and theatrical elements, marked another important step toward developing opera as an independent art form. And there were other forms as well. English masques and French ballet de cour also contributed to a broader sort of European tradition that eventually culminates in the creation of opera. So you can see opera came from many different modes and modalities and eventually became what we know as opera today. These early forms, with their blend of music, drama, and a spectacle, and I think spectacle is important, directly influenced the birth of opera, providing a foundation upon which this amazing genre could develop. So the emergence of opera during the Renaissance was a complete and utter musical revolution and transformation of space where the performance took place. Early opera houses were often court theaters or specifically designed spaces within a palace that reflected grandeur and cultural ambition of the period. Notable examples of these include the following. Teatro Olympia Vicenza was designed by the renowned architect Andrea Palladio. This is one of the oldest surviving Renaissance theaters. Although initially intended for classical plays, its design and acoustics, and that's something we haven't talked about, but these theaters were specifically designed for acoustic properties because they did not have amplification. So there were no microphones or speakers or those kinds of things in these early productions. So it had to be able to, the sound of the voice and the music had to resonate enough that everyone would be able to hear it and hear it clearly. And that really was a big part of how these early houses were created. I think I skipped one here. The next one, also designed by Palladio, was All'Antica Sabbioneta from 1588. This theater was a venue where the dramatic arts, including early operatic performances, were staged in an intimate and innovative space. The Teatro Farnese Parma was built slightly later, but still rooted in that Renaissance design. This theater is famous for its exquisite stage and innovative use of perspective, which allowed for more elaborate opera productions. And finally, the Uffizi Theater in Florence, which no longer is standing. The Uffizi Theater was one of the venues commissioned by the Medici family. Through their patronage of composers like Peri and Cocchini, the Medici family played a significant role in the development of early opera. So these Renaissance opera houses, with their distinctive architectural designs and emphasis on visual spectacle, provided the perfect backdrop for this new art form, opera. They allowed for the experimentation with stagecraft and acoustics that would become hallmarks of an operatic experience, setting the stage quite literally for the future of opera as we know it today. So Jacopo Peri was a member of the Florentine Cameretta, a group dedicated to the reviving of the dramatic arts of the ancient Greece, and composed Daphne, La Daphne, around 1597. It is considered the earliest known opera. Although most of the music has been lost, it laid the foundation for the operatic form. In 1600, he also composed Eurydice in the earliest surviving opera, and later on it was performed at the wedding of Maria de' Medici and Henry IV of France. This work demonstrated opera's potential to convey powerful emotions and complex narratives through music. So I'd like to just have a very short, I'm going to play quickly here a short version, just a scene from Daphne. This was written in 1607 for a court performance during the annual Carnival in Mantua. While the honor of the first ever opera goes to Pieri Daphne, there are other early surviving operas, Eurydice, also by Peri, and El Orfeo, still surviving and honestly regularly performed today. So let's see if we can get this to play. Up and back, maybe. Okay, so the next person that we're going to look at is Monteverde and El Orfeo. He was regarded as the composer who transformed opera into a mature and more sophisticated art form. This opera, written by Monteverdi, expands on Peri's innovation with a greater range of musical expression and more complex orchestration. Monteverdi's use of instrumental color, kind of the highs and lows of an instrument, as well as dramatic contrasts and expressive vocal lines, marked a significant evolution in opera, establishing it as a powerful medium for emotional and philosophical exploration. It was also written early on in the early 1600s.
De miei lunghi aspri tormenti, quando i sassi ai miei lamenti rispondean fatti pietosi. Vi ricordo boschi ombrosi, vi ricordo boschi ombrosi. Dite allora non vi sembrai, allor non mi sembrai più d'ogni altro sconsolato, or fortuna stil cangiato ed avvolto in festa e guai. Dite allor non mi sembrai più d'ogni altro sconsolato. Mesto e dolente, or gioisco e quegli affanni che sofferti io per tant'anni fan più caro il ben presente. Vissi già mesto e dolente, vissi già mesto e dolente. Bella Euridice, benedico il mio tormento, dopo il qual vi è più contento, dopo il mal vi è più felice. Sol per te, bella Euridice, sol per te, bella Euridice. Mirate, mira Orfeo, che ogni intorno
And here you can see how there's audience interaction. Okay. And the next one that we're going to look at is Giulio Caccini, instrumental. He had what was called a monody, a style of solo singing with instrumental accompaniment, allowing composers to emphasize text and expression and emotion more directly. Caccini's theories on music and drama profoundly influenced his contemporaries and successors, helping to establish principles that would guide opera's development for centuries. And so let's take a look here.
Or
so just to be clear, so you understand that the opera was originally by Jacopo Peri, but the additional music was added in by Guido Caccini. Okay. We're going to stop there. All right. Next, we're going to talk about ballad operas of the 18th century England. The 18th century saw the development of what was known as the ballad opera, which has also been called 18th century protest against the Italian conquest of the London operatic scene. So it consists of racy, often satirical, spoken. It's all in English dialogue. It's not in Italian or German or French. Interspersed with songs that are deliberately kept very short, very melodic. They're single short stanza refrains. They're kind of minimized disruptions to the flow of the story, which involve lower class, often criminals, and characters that aren't very savory, and typically shows a suspension of the high moral value of the Italian opera period, which was very, high ideals and these sort of idealized or romanticized ancient figures of, the mythology. So here we go. This is the Beggar's Opera by
Since
John Gay.
laws were made for every degree to curb vice in others
There you can see he's in
as
jail.
well as me, I wonder we had better company upon Tyburn Tree. Since laws were made for every degree to curb vice in others as well as me, I wonder we had better company upon Tyburn Tree. But gold from law can take out the sting, and if rich men like us were to swing, 'twould thin out the land, such numbers to string upon Tyburn Tree. But gold from law can take out the sting, and if rich men like us were to swing, 'twould thin out the land, such numbers to string upon Tyburn Tree.
Okay. We will move on to French operetta and Singspiel. So French operetta and Singspiel came from France and Germany respectively, and they developed their own musical theatrical traditions that with works like Offenbach's operetta and Mozart's Magic Flute, which combine spoken dialogue and musical numbers. So we will look here at the fairy tale of the Magic Flute. In this fairy tale opera, the Queen of the Night persuades Prince Tamino to rescue her daughter Pamina from the captivity under the high priest Sarastro. Instead, he learns the high ideals of Sarastro's community and seeks to join it. Separately, then together, Tamino and Pamina undergo severe trials of initiation, which end in triumph, with the queen and her cohorts being vanquished. The earthy Papagino, who accompanies Tamino on his quest, fails the trials completely, but is rewarded anyway with the hand of the ideal female companion, Papagina. The opera was premiered in Vienna on the 30th of September in 1791 at the suburban Freehouse Theater in Off de Verden. Mozart conducted the orchestra, and Schikaneder himself played Papagino, while the role of the Queen of the Night was sung by Mozart's sister-in-law, Josepha Hofer. On reception of the opera, Mozart's scholar Maynard Solomon writes, Although there were no reviews of the first performance, it was immediately evident that Mozart and Schikaneder had achieved a great success, the opera drawing immense crowds and reaching hundreds of performances during the 1790s. As Mozart's letters show, he was very pleased to have achieved such a success. Mozart's delight is reflected in his last 3 letters written to Constanze, who was with her sister Sophie and spending the second week of October in Baden. I have this moment returned from the opera, which was as full as ever, he writes on the 7th of October, listing the numbers that had to be encored. But what always gives me the most pleasure is the silent approval. You can see how the opera is becoming more and more esteemed when people actually listen. He went to hear his opera almost every night, taking along friends and relatives. So let's take a short listen here. All right. So you can see the drama and how intense these musical performances were, and people just loved them. So the 19th century saw the development of works that bridge the gap now between opera and modern musical. So we start to see changes. And Gilbert and Sullivan, we can look at the kind of heroes of modern musical. We look at Gilbert and Sullivan, American minstrel shows and vaudeville, early Broadway influence, and that kind of thing. So Gilbert and Sullivan, they were a British duo. They revolutionized comic operas with witty satirical works like HMS Pinafore and The Pirates of Penzance, which influenced the later musical comedies. American minstrel shows and vaudeville in the United States, minstrel shows were seen as problematic due to racial stereotypes, but vaudeville acts, variety acts, helped shape the entertainment industry and also the whole idea of musical storytelling. And then, of course, there's the early Broadway influence, shows like The Black Crook, which often considered the first American musical, combined melodrama, dance, and music, setting the stage for future Broadway productions. So let's take a very short little look at The Pirates of Penzance as they explore themes of duty and honor and the silliness of the strict rules, while also making fun of the British class system in Victorian society. The opera is a delightful mix of romance, comedy, and satire, and featuring memorable music, historical costumes, and witty dialogue. And this is about, I believe, climbing the mountain.
Climbing over rocky mountains, skipping rivulet and fountain, passing where the willows quiver, passing where the willows quiver by the ever-rolling river, swollen with the summer rain, threading long and leafy mazes, dotted with unnumbered daisies, dotted with unnumbered daisies, scaling rough and rugged passes, climb the hardy little lasses till the bright city shone again. Scaling rough and rugged passes, climb the hardy little lasses till the bright city shone again. Let us gaily tread the measure, make the most of fleeting leisure, hail it as a true ally, though it perish by and by. Hail it as a true ally, though it perish by and by. Every moment brings a treasure of its own especial pleasure, though the moments quickly fly. Greet them gaily as they fly. Greet them gaily as they fly. Though the moments quickly die, greet them gaily as they fly.
Okay, we'll stop there. And now we're going to look at a little bit at the golden age of musical theater. So the early 20th century saw musical theater become a dominant force in entertainment thanks to advances in storytelling and production techniques. So right along with the way that the writers were writing the music, the way the music was being, the drama, the play itself, but also there were technical advances. We had different kinds of lighting. We had better stage sets. We had full-on, groups of people, stagehands, if you will, that would bring things on and off and try to create this sense of realism. So it really changed the way that theater was produced. So Broadway's early years, we saw Jerome Kern's Showboat. It was 1927, groundbreaking, integrating music and narrative more seamlessly than ever before. In the golden age, from the 1940s to the 1960s, this era saw legendary collaborations between Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein. The second, we saw Oklahoma, The Sound of Music, and then Leonard Bernstein's West Side Story, and Cole Porter's Kiss Me Kate. These shows featured strong plots, well-developed characters, and memorable songs. And then we can move over to the West End in London and look at the London's influence to become a rival to Broadway, producing beloved musicals like My Fair Lady and Oliver. And by the time we get into the 1960s and into the early 1970s, we see something else. Because of the influence of rock music, we now see rock music coming into musical theater and experimental theater. So the counterculture movement influences shows like Hair from 1967, Jesus Christ Superstar in 1970, all introduced to Broadway. So we're going to take a look at a little one of the songs from the musical Hair. When it was brought back some 30 years ago. So it's like quite a while already, 1967. But this was on the David Letterman show where the actual cast from Broadway came and sang. So let's go ahead and watch that. It's great.
This is going to be very nice. Our next guest star in the new Broadway revival currently playing at the Al Hirschfeld Theater. And listen to this. Tonight, they will be recreating a performance that took place 40 years ago, right here on this very stage in the Ed Sullivan Theater. How about that? 40. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the cast of Hair.
When the moon is in the seventh house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, then peace will guide the planets and love will see the stars. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, the age of Aquarius. When the moon is in the seventh house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, then peace will guide the planet and love will see the stars. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. We start to look at one another, short of breath, walking proudly in our winter coats, wearing smells from laboratories, facing a dying nation, a moving paper fantasy, listening for the eyes with supreme visions of lonely tunes, singing our space songs on the spider webs in time. Life is around you and leave you, and support Timothy Leary, dearie. Let the sun shine, let the sun shine in, the sun shine in. Let the sun shine, let the sun shine in, the sun shine in. Let the sun shine, let the sun shine in, the
I'm going to stop it there for just a second. And let me just go back here. Hair was a musical that showcased the counterculture of the 1960s through a loosely connected series of sketches and songs that deride the Vietnam War and social conformity and celebrate sexual freedom and relationship and recreational drug use, racial equality, and individuality. The full title of the musical was Hair, the American Tribal Love Rock Musical, and was both a rock musical and a book with lyrics by Jerome Ragney and James Rado, with music composed by Galt McDermott. The work reflects the creator's observations of the hippie counterculture and revolution of the late 1960s, and several of its songs became anthems of the anti-Vietnam War movement. The musical, in its depiction of irreverence for the American flag and some of the scenes, caused a great deal of controversy. The work broke new ground in musical theater by defining the genre of rock musical using a racially integrated cast and inviting the audience on stage in a be-in for the finale. And so that scene that you saw where they were handing flowers out and going into the audience and bringing audience back up onto the stage actually happened. So Hair tells the story of a tribe or a group of politically active, long-haired hippies at the age of Aquarius living in a bohemian life in New York City and fighting against the Vietnam War. Claude, his friend Berger, their roommate Sheila, and their friends struggle to balance their young lives with the revolution and their rebellion against the war and their conservative parents and society. Ultimately, Claude must decide whether to resist the draft, as his friends have done, or to serve in Vietnam, compromising his pacifist principles and risking his life to die. After an off-Broadway debut on October 17th in 1967 at Joseph Papp's Public Theater and a run at the Cheetah nightclub from December 1967 to January 1968, the show opened on Broadway in April of 1968 and ran for 1,750 performances. Simultaneously, productions in cities across the United States and Europe followed shortly thereafter, including a successful London production that ran for almost 2,000 performances. Since then, productions have been staged around the world, spawning dozens of recordings of the musical, including 3 million selling original Broadway cast recordings. Some of the songs from its score have been in the top 10 hits in Billboard and featured a film adaptation that was also released in 1979. A Broadway revival opened in 2009, earning strong reviews, and this is the one that we saw here. This is the people from the 2009 revival, and it won a Tony Award and a Drama Desk Award for Best Revival of a Musical. In 2008, Richard Zoglin wrote in Time magazine that today's Hair seems, if anything, more daring than ever. So we'll click through. Okay, so 21st century modern musical, the contemporary musical, what is it? In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, musical continued to evolve with new themes, styles, and technology. And so now mega musicals and spectacles are happening. In 1980 to 1990, we saw Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera, and then Claude Michael Schoenberg's Les Mis, in 1985, and they dominated global theater, emphasizing grand productions and powerful scores. Some of these theater productions, because I do work in theater, some of these theater productions, they take, 24 hours. They come in with like 10 huge 53-foot semis worth of stuff that have to be set up. So it's just like a big rock show. They just are incredible. Disney's influence in 1990 to 2000, Disney adapted its animated films into stage musicals as well, like The Lion King in 1997 and Beauty and the Beast in 1994, and eventually Frozen in the last, 2 years. Diverse stories and innovations from 2010 to the present, musicals like Hamilton in 2015 and Dear Evan Houston and Hades and some of the others are just incredible, pushing the boundaries of storytelling. And with hip-hop music, Rent is another good example, pop music and contemporary themes. And now we have streaming and digital musicals. During the COVID-19 pandemic, it accelerated the rise of digital theater with productions streaming on platforms like Disney Plus and Broadway HD, making musical theater even more accessible so you don't necessarily have to go to a theater to see it. So here we're going to take a quick look at Hamilton. Before we do that, I just want to say it's an American musical. It is sung and rapped through biographical music with lyrics and a book by Lin-Manuel Miranda. Based on the 2004 Who I Met. It was an amazing show. Based on the 2004 biography of Alexander Hamilton by Rod Chernow, the musical covers the life of American founding father Alexander Hamilton and his involvement in the American Revolution and the political history of the United States. Composed over a 7-year period, from 2008 to 2015, the music draws heavily from hip-hop as well as R&B, pop, soul, and traditional style show tunes. It casts non-white actors as founding fathers of the United States and other historical figures. Miranda described Hamilton as about American then as told by America now. The Orphaned Hamilton narrates Alexander Hamilton's life in 2 acts and details, among other things, his involvement in the Revolutionary War as an aide-de-camp to George Washington, his marriage to Eliza Schuyler Hamilton, his career as a lawyer and Secretary of the Treasury, and his interactions with Aaron Burr, the main narrator of most of the musical, which culminates in the duel and ends Hamilton's life. In conclusion, what I would like to say is that musical stage theater has undergone significant transformation over the centuries, from ancient storytelling traditions to the dazzling Broadway and West End productions of today. As technology advances and storytelling techniques evolve, musical theater continues to captivate audiences worldwide, proving that the art form remains as vibrant and essential as ever. Whether you're a fan of classic show tunes, groundbreaking contemporary production, or historical operatic works, musical theater remains a powerful medium and a powerful source that unites music, drama, and dance in a uniquely immersive way. The curtain is never fully closed on the evolution of this beloved art form. Please go out and see a play today, because I think you will really enjoy it. And that's all I have. We'll talk again next time.